friends, colleagues, and listeners. Here we are. This is a lovely, lovely podcast that I'm looking forward to. And I've got a man here, a young fella, and he's got a sunshine smile. The person I'm talking about is Mohammad Taher, who's better known as the airport guy, as you can see from his tabard behind him. Mohammed, lovely to have you on board, mate. I've been looking I was going to say, I've been looking to have you, but that didn't sound too good. But I've been looking to have you on the podcast for such a long time and just get to know you a little bit better. So fair play to you for what you've already done and
Thank you.
also for the steps you've taken. So thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's start off by, right, just give us a little bit about you and why you've done what you've done and why are you known as the airport guy?
Great question. So, my background's aerospace engineering. So I've always loved planes. The question I always had is, how on earth, right? How does that thing fly?
Yeah,
That passion drew me to a point where I was like, I'm going to study aerospace engineering. I'm trying to figure this out. Did an aerospace engineering degree, worked a little bit with Lufthansa Technique in their MRO facility
yeah,
down in Hayes. Had no idea that there in Hayes there was a MRO facility for landing gear,
yeah,
but applied and got the job. Done a year there, went back to uni, graduated, and when I graduated, I applied for the Future Leaders Graduate Program at Heathrow Airport. So the Future Leaders Graduate Program at Heathrow Airport is basically 2.5, 3 years where you're like a kid in a candy store. You're going from 6 months in the baggage system to 6 months out on the runways to 6 months up the control tower, 6 months in the terminal buildings, 6 months underground in the train tunnels looking after the train systems. And I was just walking around this airport, just gobsmacked by the complexity and the engineering and the planning and the teamwork that it takes
yeah,
to put an airport together. And I'm like, wow, like as a kid, I loved aviation. I loved
yeah,
planes, to be more precise. And I didn't realize that planes were just a very small tip of a very large iceberg, which is the
yeah,
whole industry. And it was
yeah,
those 3 years in the industry that blew my mind to the point. I remember going home one day and showing my auntie pictures of stuff that I'd taken. I'm like, look at this, look how cool it is. And she was like, why don't you share this stuff? I'm like, yeah, who's gonna care, really? She's like, nah, just share it. You never know. So I went up on Instagram and I just like, look, I'm an engineering graduate. I'm just gonna share anything that I learn at work. I'm just gonna teach you it. Obviously, nothing that's gonna produce any vulnerabilities for security or safety.
yeah,
But within the green zone, let me just share what I'm learning. A week goes by, a month, a year, 3 years. I these videos start to go viral. Like, and I mean viral to the point where my channel, the number of followers on my channel overtook Heathrow Airport's official channels, who was my employer at the time.
brilliant, brilliant.
And I was walking through a train station one day, and some guy stepped off the train. He looked up, and he was like flustered. He was looking at me like, "You're the guy. You're the guy with the airport. Your airport videos. You're the airport guy. You're the airport guy." And I thought to myself, "The airport guy." Yeah, the
Nice one.
airport guy. And I went home and I just added the airport guy to my channel. And what I didn't realize is that these videos were, well, I knew from the number of messages I was getting that a lot of people were seeing them and a lot of people were being impacted by them to
Yeah,
the point where young people were asking me, like, look, how do I get into this
yeah,
industry? Like, what you're showing me is so interesting. I really want to get a chance to get into this industry. And I'd reply to all these young people to the point where one day I was sat in a room full of all of the graduates, apprentices, all of the um, every young person who'd been hired at Heathrow Airport in their engineering team was sat in one room. And I asked a room full of young people, I said, look, who here decided they want to join Heathrow Airport because of one of my videos? Just put your hand up. Let me just take a
yeah.
quick count. 53% of the room put their hand up.
That's nice,
And
Mohammed.
that's when I was like, wow.
No, that's lovely. And the thing that you said there about you loved the aircraft, but you didn't realise the business. Like I grew up in not the best of places, and then by chance I fell into the business. But the one
Mm,
thing I've learned, and I've managed to live all over the world, and I thank, and it was Lufthansa who gave me the first chance. They're a brilliant company, great trainers. But I've managed to live all over the world. But the one thing I tell everybody is wherever a plane takes off or lands, you
mm,
draw loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of circles around that aircraft. They're all
yeah.
the different businesses that are associated or skills with that. So if you can do it in one country, you can do it somewhere else. And there's always an opportunity for you if you've got that skills base and you love the aviation industry with a passion, because it's that passion and engagement. that people want. You can upskill passion, you can upskill engagement, but it's
Yeah.
very difficult to do it the other way around.
You talk about these circles, right? It's like it's a Venn diagram, right?
Yeah,
You have the
yeah,
airplane in the middle, and you have all these Venn diagrams. The interesting thing about what skills are relevant in those Venn diagrams is absolutely any skill or interest or subcategory or
yep,
niche that you might even be able to dream of
yep,
can be drawn in a Venn diagram with aviation, and that's the beauty of it.
yeah. I
And
know,
that's, yeah,
I agree with you. I love it, and everybody says you fall into it, but you never fall out of it, and
yeah.
you're there forever. But it's not a bad thing because the community and what you're doing, and if you're able to get people to resonate with why and always answer the why and let people understand the purpose and the objectives and what they're actually doing, whether it be with international business or helping people on other sides of the world, whatever it is, relief, whatever, bringing people to meet each other, bringing people to visit each other, in sickness and in health, all those things. It's such a wonderful, wonderful industry.
Yeah, you mentioned sickness, health, etc. It's always interesting when you walk through a terminal building and you look at the faces of the people.
Yeah,
I've always wondered, and I've always had the urge to just go up to people and just say, look, why are you traveling today? And
yeah,
really understand the why. And what you'll realize is one aeroplane with 150 people on there have 150 different reasons
yeah,
while they're traveling. And that's the beauty of it, really.
yeah. Everybody's got a different story. And I don't know if you're familiar with Love Actually, the film.
Yeah.
That was a
Those
great
filmed at
ending.
Heathrow, the arrivals hall scenes.
Yeah, but what a great ending where it's got the little pictures of, grandmothers meeting their grandchildren for the first time, lovers meeting, strangers meeting, business people. Just snip, 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 snip. And that's exactly it. Everybody's got a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I think was find interesting is as a young person, when I interacted with the aviation industry, my family traveled a lot. But one thing that, although I loved the industry and it felt really interesting and very cool, for some reason at the back of my mind, I always felt like the industry was out of reach from a
Yeah,
career point of view. I think there's this weird thing with our industry where, I mean, I know why I felt like it was out of reach. I remember when I first decided I want to get into the aviation sector, I went and told one of my uncles, sat me down. He's like, look, what do you want to be when you're older? And I was like, oh, I don't know, but like I think I was like 14, 15 at the time. I was like, I want to be something to do with aviation, maybe an aerospace engineer. And he was like, look, Mo, look, your name is Mohammed, you're an Arab, you're a Muslim. 9/11's not too far gone. They don't hire Muslims in aviation. And he was a brain surgeon, and he told me this.
really?
And I thought, wow, okay, I guess I need. He's like, pick. You can be a pharmacist, you can be a doctor, you can be a dentist. Just choose something where you guarantee the job. Don't bother with aviation. But what you find is that passion, right? That interest, that curiosity, just never died. Like it truly, truly never left me. And it's about really finding people with that passion, with that spark, and being able to tell and not allowing them to believe what they might hear that here, there, and everywhere about what is it isn't possible about building a career here. Because after I started my channel, I got a kid called Abdullah once who messaged me saying, "Hey bro, my mum tells me they don't hire Muslims in aviation," and I showed her your page, and that's how I convinced her that they do.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, you've hit on something now, which like all my family are Irish background. So there was a time when, if you're Irish, there was certain stigma, etc.
Yeah.
But again, I can't. I mean, it's a shame that you've said that, Mohammed, because at the end of the day, every single country in the GCC and everywhere, they still have aircraft going in, going out. They still have businesses going in, going out. They still have airports opening and staying open. And do you
100%.
know what I mean? It's a global thing that we all have that at some point, and I've yet to decide whether it was the best point or not, but international travel opened up to everybody.
Mm,
And the fact that it has, and now, countries are opening up and, it's a chance to do anything anywhere. But again, I always come back to the fact that, and whenever I was interviewing people, I always wanted to interview to find the attitude and the behavior and the engagement rather than what they had on certificates or skills base or whatever. Because if you've got the right attitude and behavior and you've got the right engagement, you can help people become something very, very special.
Interesting. Interesting. You touch upon there about like just talent, right? Finding talent,
Yeah,
be able to allow talent to flourish. The aviation industry is the perfect fertile ground to allow talent to flourish because no matter if you're open-minded and you like to meet people and you like to ask questions and you're curious, you can do anything in this industry.
yep,
But what people from the outside don't realize is that you can do anything in this industry. The
yep,
perception of this industry is quite limited in the hearts and minds of the public.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Part of the challenge that I'm trying to really overcome here,
yeah,
as in the work that I do, is that after I started making these videos and they started to go viral, and and I was attracting all these young people to join the sector. I would read articles online talking about an aviation skills crisis and how
yeah,
there's not enough young people choosing to join our industry and how the government's pumping thousands and thousands of pounds trying to just do outreach and just to teach people
yep,
about
yep,
this industry. And I'm like, hold on a minute. How is there an aviation skills crisis when every time I open my phone, I'm flooded with messages of young people who are like, how do I get a job here? So I
yeah,
realized like the government's looking at one world and I'm looking at a whole different world.
yeah,
And that's when I realized that the government isn't doing anything where and actually isn't using the channels that young people are using to try and solve the problem. They're too busy setting up like workshops and stuff that no young person is attending. And the only thing that I did different was I took our industry in its complexity, in its entirety. I chopped it up into short, sharp, educational, fun videos.
yeah,
And I asked myself, where are the young people already spending their time?
yeah.
And how can we put that in front of their eyeballs? And the results have been phenomenal to the point where the government asked if I can be an ambassador, like an aviation ambassador,
No, I
because of
agree,
the impact these
Mohammed.
videos are having.
Yeah, I agree with what you've done. I agree with what you said there earlier as well, because like you said, people don't see it. I think the old perception of aviation is that you're either going to be an aircraft engineer, a pilot, or cabin crew, or check-in, and they didn't realise all these other roles that are there, and they didn't realise the opportunities. And you can mix something you're interested in with a wonderful, wonderful industry, but also the fertility of the channels of communication. Some
Mm,
are clogged up, they've got barriers and blockers, and people who are a bit negative, and there is, I mean, there's an awful lot of people out there who would love to get the opportunity to come into aviation if they understood more about what aviation offers. And
mm,
it's not just about getting into a hold, which I've done in many countries, and being out in extreme weathers, which I've done. And all of those are wonderful experiences. I know it's silly to say that, but when you're out in the freezing cold, whether it be in Chicago or Alaska or wherever, and then you're in the extreme heats like Saudi and the UAE, they are great experiences to look back on. And that's what life's all about. It's making as many experiences and memories. And I firmly believe you're never going to be disappointed if you come into aviation. Which brings me now to what you've done, and fair play. You've got wonderful recognition. So you've got the UK Aviation Ambassador, the Department of Transport. People are getting to know who you are now. They loved what you've done. So I just want to ask you, what do you think are your 4 to 5 passionate key focus points that you want to make a difference with?
very good question. So the biggest impact that I want to have really personally is I want to be a part of the global movement that solves the aviation skills crisis.
Right.
So I want thousands and thousands, if not millions of people around the world to be able to one day turn around and be like, it was those initiatives that actually planted the seed for aviation and made me believe that a career was possible.
Yep.
And it was those initiatives that opened up my eyes to the breadth and depth of a career in aviation. That's the
Yep.
first one. The second one is I want people to recognize, I want to help people understand themselves in order to help them understand their place in this industry, right? So if somebody can really begin to understand what their interests are, that's when they can overlay that on the industry and
Yep.
begin to niche down into a place that when they wake up on a Monday morning, they truly love. The next thing that I would love to do really is about health and safety. So if you're able to understand yourself, you're able to actually become more safe. And there's a really interesting personality diversity like indicator, which basically allows you to understand yourself to the point it can help you predict how you'd get hurt. So I want to be able to help people in this industry become more self-aware and then become safer as well.
That's a good
Those
one.
are So yeah, so that's really those are the areas that I'm really keen and interested in. The last one is actually helping people understand their purpose. Actually, those are the four areas that I'm passionate about. Planting the seed for aviation, helping people become more self-aware about their skills and their passions.
Yeah,
I love to help people understand themselves. It really all of it revolves around self-awareness. Understand themselves to become more safe, and then understand themselves to become um, purpose-driven,
yeah, yeah,
really purpose-driven, and shape their career where it aligns with their purpose. And I truly believe you can do that in aviation because it's so broad and so varied that you can truly find a way to live your purpose in this sector.
yeah. And I think if there's sort of like a menu or a formula or a set of guidelines that make sense and they're simple enough, then the stakeholders and various companies, as far as being supporters or sponsors or contributors, it's easier for them to align and then see whether you can take it to the next level.
Mm,
Because there's lots of programs, like you were talking there about the Future Leaders program, but there's lots of programs that people could do at airports, because I'm a big believer as well that the aviation industry can become better if airports take a bigger role in the wider community. So
tell
that
me more
people,
about that.
pardon?
Tell me more about that. What do you mean by
Okay,
that?
right. So as far as I'm concerned, you've got the traditional carriers who fly in and out of countries, right? Now everybody knows, and COVID proved it, those airlines can stop flying in,
Mm,
and some other airlines might start flying in. And then you've got handling agents that are built up. You've got forwarders, you've got shippers, you've got various other sides of the industry. But they are all recognized for their own individual brands. And what I think is important now is if an airport starts taking more responsibility for its community, and anybody that's in that community, they're in there because of certain standards, certain criteria that the airport can influence, but also to make people proud that they're working in that particular airport. Not that they're working for British Airways at Heathrow or Virgin at Heathrow or Lufthansa, but the first thing is they're proud to be working at Heathrow because of
mm,
everything that Heathrow can bring to them. And then
mm.
if the airports then start introducing certain, certain codes of practice, certain skills-based guidelines, certain things that they take a vested interest in doing, because at the end of the day, everybody that's doing business in those particular airports are doing so as a license of that airport operator.
Correct.
So they've got the chance to be the next positive disruptor in the industry to start bringing up standards, bringing up opportunities. So if airports had a sort of, like you just said about the Future Leaders program, but if they had a shorter one whereby individuals could come in and they had a checklist of all the things that they thought they had an interest in, and they could say, right, of these 32 points, I really like those top six, and they had the chance for 3 months over an 18-month
Mm.
period to work in all of those points. And the sponsor companies who accepted it knew that they were going to get somebody at the end of the day, a little bit like the NFL or the draft system.
Yeah,
They knew that they would get somebody, that somebody had to want to be with them and they wanted to take that person. And then they gave them a full-time job at the end of it. Then you've got somebody who's got a broader experience, either related or in contrast to what they thought they wanted, but they're helping to pay for that person by all of that community saying, right, if we all do it, we can afford to have six people, and we know we're going to give six people a job, and it's going to be down to them. Whoever comes top, they choose which company they want, and whichever company got the lowest person the last time, just like the draft, they have the first choice this time. So, it's all, but something like that whereby you almost have, like, and there's so many other businesses that are associated with being close to Heathrow, whether it's
mm,
restaurants, whether it's whether it's petrol stations, whether it's fast foods, whether it whatever it is, they're all there because of the community that Heathrow has generated, or Gatwick, or Manchester, or Dublin, or wherever you want to choose. But I think airports could have a unique model that offered certain things like that, and then they could also offer an international exchange program. So the industry has got great opportunities, which wouldn't be too costly,
mm.
but I think fits in nicely with what you're doing.
I like that a lot. I think that then helps people understand their purpose, helps people understand how the business is run,
Yes.
And the beauty of that is also if you have insight into how all the various different departments click into each other
Yep,
on an airport campus, when you do end up landing in wherever position you end up landing in, you make better decisions, which are going to be able to have a better impact on the whole stakeholders because you, it would be a no-brainer. Of course, I don't do that because if I do that, then the ground
yeah,
handler is going to have to
that's
deal
it.
with that. And da, 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 da. Because the airport is such a unique place where the dominoes are stacked so tight, when one domino falls, you have an instant ramification on other
Yep,
people.
yep,
If we don't allow ourselves to understand different people's perspectives and we
yep,
operate in silos where we don't understand different people's perspectives, it will just exacerbate the problem even more and more and more. And when you zoom out of all of it, when there's a problem and it hits the media, it's not British Airways that's, or it's not the ground handler. Ultimately, who gets put in the headlines?
yep,
It's the airport.
yep.
So it's vested interest of the airport to not hit the headlines to make sure everyone plays ball and everyone understands each other.
And that they're a little bit tougher and a little bit more stricter and a little bit more supportive on setting those standards and raising them over a 2 to 5 year period. And then
Mm,
the other reason I wanted to bring that up is because that would give you the chance to have a multiplier effect because in every airport that took on the same initiative with the same blueprint, you'd have another airport guy. So you would have airport guys
exactly.
all over any airport that decided to do it with a similar sort of focus. Then you can have airport guy conferences. You can have airport guy. The airport guy principle would just go and go and go.
Fantastic. And that's actually part of it because there's a study that shows young people, the thing that can really truly change their lives the most out of all things we can give them that can raise their aspirations in life is a role model.
Yep.
So if you give them somebody who's relatable, who feels real and feels like they're not too far ahead of them and they're just a couple steps ahead and they're just like them, if you're able to highlight more airport girls and airport guys around the world and make them role models utilizing social media to put them in front of the eyeballs of the next generation, then we're able to create that catalyst effect of young people always having somebody in the airport that they can look up to, that then they can actually aspire to be like when they grow up. And we're able to really build a robust funnel of talent from screens and people just seeing
Yep.
people on screens to say, I want to be like that person. And then they aspire to be that person.
Yeah, and then all I want from you is that we start creating the airport old boy. So it's somebody who's had a lot of experience. Because I tell all the youngsters now, I say, look, one of the things that's a shame is when older people leave an industry with a lot of experience, it's
100%.
almost as if they've been left to drop off the cliff and nobody wants them anymore. So they become a little bit bitter and sour. Whereas if they had a different attitude as well, and they said, right, I've learned so much, mainly because I've lived through mistakes or I've lived through things that weren't right and we recovered. What a wonderful start to give youngsters that experience and wisdom early on in their career. And
Mm,
if there's that relationship between the old guy and the airport guy, okay, where you can bring that together and help people at the beginning, it would, fast track their career. They wouldn't be complacent. They wouldn't fall into certain traps that nearly all of us do. And that's why at the end of the day, they say youth is wasted on the young and wisdom's wasted on the old. And if you can bring that together, so who knows? Maybe we can get another tabard with the airport old boy.
mm. I'm down. Let's make it happen.
But listen,
Fantastic.
I've loved talking to you. I think you've got a wonderful personality, and the way you put yourself across with that smile of yours is exceptional. So
Thank you.
what I'd like to ask you, if you're up for it, would you consider doing like a 4 or a 5 part series where we could do one little short podcast on each of the 4 points that you raised? And also the one that I've got, which I'd like you to think about, is what could airports do to change the perception of aviation?
Mm, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. The
So if
airport
you're if
guy
you're
and
up
the
for that,
airport old guy.
yeah,
Part two coming soon.
part two, yeah, yeah.
Two, three, four, and five. We're going for it. Let's do it.
No, that's it. Seriously, though, Mohammed, it's lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
Obviously, I know Yavid very well, and I was talking to him about getting you on for a long time. So really appreciate it. Good luck with everything, and I'd love to talk more about the airport side of things with you.
Likewise, I'd love to learn from you and see, how we can hopefully inspire the next generation.
Yeah, yeah. Please God, take care.
Thank you. Bye
All
bye.
the best now. Thank you.